Hey guys, welcome to Conquest Racing Club. Welcome to our live show. I'm here with Marty from Two Lines Speedway. We're co-hosting this live together. Hey
Hey
Marty,
Raul, how's it going, man?
it's good. It's good. We plan to do this quite often, but we never got around to it. So I'm glad we finally got it done.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Let's see. I don't think there's anyone on yet, so we'll just hold on a bit and see what happens. Give it a couple minutes. So, what cars were you racing yesterday?
So, shout out to George at Area 51. He sent a box of stuff, and in that was my text lot box, and I did a video on that. But in it, he knows that I'm a big fan of the Porsche 917, and he sent a few of his 917s that he's tuned. And it's good that I did that yesterday because of our discussion today. So, yeah, they were Carrera cars, and they were screaming around the track, and they were all very, very even. So that was what was fun. Is all three of us that were racing. We finished a race and we were all on the same lap within feet of each other, which made for very exciting racing.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Some Slot R is saying that my audio's a little bit lower than yours. Is that better now, Slot R? Let me know.
That's because Marty's got a big mouth.
No way.
I can bring my audio down a little bit too.
No, it's fine. I got control here too. So
Okay,
I think
good.
we're good.
All right.
I'm going to take that mic off. Yeah. Yeah. So you were racing some of George's cars. Are they all non-magnetic or digitally chipped?
These are digital Carrera 917Ks.
Okay. Cool.
He sent like four of them, and they're all tuned identical.
Okay.
Okay, focus, 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 focus. And yeah, they are great cars. I think that the 917 is Carrera's best car that they've made. I've not
No, the
I've not raced
917.
a bunch of them, but I think that they perform so well.
Yeah. I think the two 917s I have a Carrera have a small can motor though.
Really.
Yeah.
I haven't opened these, so I need to open one just to take a look inside
John
to
says
see if
that's
they
my
have the
golf.
long cam. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, John Mark, he raced the golf
Yeah.
livery yesterday.
Cool. Welcome, John. Nice to have you on board. Yeah, so yeah, the two 917s, I have two 917s. One is from Carrera, that is. I have one that's non-digital, and then I have the digital version.
Yeah.
Both of them have a smaller motor than I noticed out of the regular Carrera cars. So I haven't really driven my 917s from Carrera at all. I have a lot of 917s, like from every company. I pretty much have a bunch of them. I mean, this is like the fly version, the Martini one that I had. That we
Yeah, that's
raced
sweet. That's a
yesterday.
sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't really raced the Carrera one that much, but it'd be interesting. So you're saying they're flying around your track?
Yeah, they really perform well. I talked to George about what he had done to them, and he had not done a whole lot. It really was just silicone tires and just a few. He changed the guides out, Frankenslot guides on them. Outside of that, that was it.
And so you run silicone on your track right now, or?
Yes, yeah, we made the conversion to silicone almost immediately. Just from what I'd read, people were really happy with different companies, Quick Slicks or Super Tires, or there's a few other brands out there. But everybody kept saying that it was either silicone or urethane. But since I didn't have a tire truer, I didn't go urethane. I went silicone because they seem to come pretty good out of the package.
Yeah. Yeah. We went Paul Gauge route this side because I guess it was the first tire that I was introduced to for Carrera
Yeah,
was Paul Gauge. So we brought in the Paul Gauge. We didn't have a proper tire truer till recently, but we're using that cheap $100 one that I showed last week from
yeah,
eBay. And the reason for that now we stick to urethane obviously because it's put down rub on the track. But when I go to Ernie's, they race silicon
Yeah.
on their track. So the I have different cars from different. Okay, is this better, Sean? Says my audio is low. My audio should be cranked though.
Yeah. You sound good on in my headphones. So
Yeah, I think I sound okay. I don't think it's a problem, but yeah. Just
how far away are you from Ernie's track? Is it a
um,
pretty good drive or?
it's about 25 minutes.
Oh, okay. Wow, you're
Yeah,
close.
so it's
So
not
you
too
would call that
bad.
your home track?
I would say home track if I went there often enough. I
Okay.
do go there to buy a lot of cars, so I buy a lot of my non-career cars from Ernie.
Okay.
Because he's got so Ernie gets in the MR slot car, obviously that's his brand.
Right.
Then he's got the NSRs. I got all my NSRs from him. I got all my Riva slots from him. He gets a sprinkling of collector cars. And then he has a lot of customs. So custom
Nice.
car builds like with metal chassis and then different bodies, which I bought quite a few for racing on his wood track because wood
Yeah,
track
as I say,
racing
he has
is
a wood track, right? So
yeah, he's
that
got
makes
both. He's
sense.
got the wood track upstairs, and then he's got the plastic track, polycar track, in the
Is it
lower.
polycar? Yeah.
Yeah, it's eight lanes upstairs, 8 lanes downstairs. So
How do you like that plastic polycar? It's really grippy compared to Carrera, right?
yes, it's different,
Yeah.
very different. Yeah, so and then I get my Carrera from Sunday Slot Cars now. Before Carrera was about an hour and a half away for me to go get a Carrera car, or an hour away at least. Um, so yeah, at least I can get majority of the brands that I'd like right away. So it's pretty good. George. George said he had a blast with the 917s yesterday. They're great to race. Yeah, I've been mostly racing GT3s though, in my class category.
Yeah.
What about you guys? You guys race a lot of GT3s or more of the old school LMPs?
Well, so we don't really have a club. So it's really just my brother and John Mark, my buddy John Mark. They come over, and anytime we race, we try to stay in brand. So most of the time that's Carrera and that's Magnet. Um, but I think last week I talked about we went to Cincy Slots, and that was the first time any of us had been to a track outside of my basement and raced. And so they were running Group 5 for the month. Bruce at Cincy Slots, he does one class of car for the entire month. So they'll do a 132nd and then a 124 scale, 2 classes each Thursday night. And so Group 5 was the analog race, and all their cars are non-mag. So that was a first for all of us because we've never really raced non-mag here because we only did digital racing until this past week.
Right.
So yeah, that was an experience. So right now, the only class we've ever run is Group 5. Next month, I think the analog class will be vintage, so which would be like old Can-Am, GT40s, which is probably going to be a slotted class, would be my guess. Most guys will probably run slotted or NSR in that class. Thunder slots would be my guess.
Okay.
But yeah, on the track here, we run a lot of the GT cars because that seems to be what Carrera is pumping out right now. So
yeah,
most of us
Carrera
own
has a really good deep
Yeah.
lineup of GT3s or cars. I find.
Yeah,
I
they look
picked up-
great.
Yeah, I picked up 4 new Carrera cars. I picked up the C8R in matte black pace car.
Yeah, that's sweet. That
I
matte
picked
black.
up all the matte black cars that come out from Carrera because I just love matte black. So I have every car since 2008 in matte black released. I have it. So yeah, that was one car. I picked up the 300 SEL, as you saw in my review.
Yeah.
I picked up new BMW with the beaver teeth kind of front
Yeah.
end. I got that one, and I picked up I picked up actually 5 cars because I got the Ferrari 5, the new 512, I think it is. and the new 488 Alpha Tauri one as well. So I picked up
Yeah.
five, and then I
Nice.
got two very special cars that are completely very old school Carrera cars. So I'll release that on a video later. But they're rare, super rare cars that I picked up. They were from somebody's very old Carrera collection. So I'm excited to showcase those. But yeah, that's
Yeah, that'd be
my
cool.
those are
So
the Carrera
your
cars I
plan is
picked up.
to do some videos covering all
Yeah.
those cars.
Yeah. The two cars I picked up, they're not. They're typically not cars I would really pick up, but because of the rarity of them, I picked them up because I don't really get to see a lot of rare Carrera cars. I have a lot of odd, like Ninko. I picked up a couple cars, but uh, not the Carrera stuff. So I do have one hot rod that I picked up. Yes, George Area 51S. And then I also picked up LMP car, a very old LMP car from Carrera as well. So should be interesting to have a look at.
Yeah, yeah. It
So
doesn't seem like Carrera releases a lot of LMP cars.
yeah, and they also yeah, so it's pretty cool. Um, and then with Ernie, I just got the new 333s. Really a beautiful car to drive.
Yeah,
Amazing.
they look great.
Yeah. So I got that, and then what else I get? I got the new Celica from Revo Slot as well. So yeah, picked up a couple of cars, but mainly it's been building this Lego City with Carrera Go track. It's pretty intense, the build for that, because to integrate the track into the Lego system, the Mills plate system, so it looks like it's seamlessly integrated into Lego. So it's not that the track is sitting right on top of the Lego. We don't want that. We want it to be part of the city. So I had to order intersections. You know, Carrego has the four-way intersections, so I
Right.
need to build it like a city. So it's a
Nice.
looped track. It's a closed track, but it's fully looped and it has intersections. So it will cause a lot of carnage when we race, but that's what we're looking for. So that's exciting. So
Yeah,
right now, that's the
you
build.
have a lot of building. Those Lego sets don't go together very fast. So
Yeah, but I
you've
got
got
a
some
whole
time.
like it's the whole club is involved in the build, and I got two guys that just expert builders. Like that's all they do is they just build. So yeah, we build like they build kits really fast, and then my daughter is building too, because this was all her idea, by the way. Because
All
we were
right.
talking about my daughter was talking about slot cars because she's got into slot cars a lot, and you'll see some of her slot cars if we talk through body float. But and I was like, oh, I always review cars, and she's like, it's not fun, it's not exciting for me to watch your videos. So I was like, what would make it fun? What would make it exciting, right? Obviously, I want to get my daughter excited. She's like, well, it'd be cool if it was like more integrated with something that I can relate to, like Lego or whatever. So she came up with the concept. I said, sure, we'll build one. But then I wanted to get
That's
the
cool.
scale right because Lego cars are a different scale from 132nd. And then 132nd also, if I put a big track on, you don't get a lot of gaps to fill Lego pieces in or buildings. So we went with the Carrera Go, especially with the build and race sets as well. So it gives us a chance to expand on the Lego theme. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So that's
Yeah, I think that it opens up a whole new world of scenery building, right? And for you and that channel, like with Legos, sky is the limit. I think with slot cars, you have a limited market, but
yeah.
with Lego, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's and you're allowed to do so many different things, right? But the focus will be, and George is saying, what is he saying? eBay will, if you search in any other countries, you will have lots of cars. Yeah, I guess for Carrera, if you're looking for some of the Carrera cars, it's easier to search through eBay and find them. Um, yeah, I normally buy. I know LEB is really good. I buy a lot of my cars. I buy some of my cars from there. I think the two Ferraris I got from LAB, but the other place that I go is on eBay is Lakota Hobbies. they seem to have a broad selection of cars.
Yeah. Another place to check, not to keep giving him a shout out, but Bruce at Cincy Slots,
Yeah.
he has like 2,000, over 2,000 cars in that shop. So
Yeah.
if you're looking for something, you probably can find it on his site.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many places to buy, and now it just comes down to what you're looking for. I think.
Right.
Yeah. Who's this? So Slot R says Slot Car Union in France carries good Carrera stock and ships internationally. It's good to know. All right, so Marty, the reason we're on today is we're talking about body float and in racing especially, right?
That's
And
right.
you were talking about yesterday, so you share your story from yesterday, and then we'll
All
go
right.
through.
Yeah. So that's a body float is something that comes up in almost every conversation that I have about slot cars and slot car tuning. And it was something I really didn't understand early on. And so I had to do a lot of research. And so I started watching videos and learning about float and introducing float and why that's important. And Raul, your explanation before we came on live was great. I think you need to share that. But yesterday, we ran some of these 917s that George has tuned, and all four of them have zero float.
Okay.
And I was expecting when I pulled them out of the box that they would have, they're fully tuned, ready to roll. And he sent me a video of them flying around his track. So I was expecting a lot of body float. I was expecting a lot of tuning, and he was explaining all the things that he did to the car, and it was really tires, truing, um, fixing the rims of Carrera cars. Why they have those little divots in them, I don't know. Um, but they run quiet. They're very fast, and I know that they're magnet cars,
Yeah.
and so it probably makes less sense to have body float in magnet cars. But I've heard people say that even introducing float into a Carrera car doesn't really help. But it kind of debunked the whole body float thing for me yesterday because those were some of the fastest cars we've ever ran on our track. They were super competitive and they were locked in. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I agree with everything about. I believe this: if you have a magnet in your car, body float becomes a little bit less of a priority
Yeah.
because the magnets themselves create a downforce onto the track, and they keep the bottom chassis pretty much fixed and stable. You do get a little bit of twisting, so I noticed that with the Mustang GTY, which is seems to be everyone's hated car for driving. Now, I love that car because we ran a class at the beginning of last year where everybody ran GTYs. So
Okay.
it was an even playing field. Everyone ran them. They got 4 different liveries. We have 4 different races here. It was perfect. And the only thing we did was we tuned the cars. Now, the key to that car was a little bit of float. That what I found was I was pretty much outpacing everyone on the track by about half a lap. And that the only difference between my car and their cars, we had both. Everyone had already used the tire truer that we had to true up their tires. The only difference that I did was one, I removed the rubber from the rim and then I trued the rim down. So I didn't get that little. If you looked at it at high speed, on the high speed cameras, I saw wobble in my car. So I took down the rim, I put the new tires on, and the other thing I did was I just released the body just slightly, so it kind of gave it a little bit of roll, so that when it went around the corner, it wouldn't de-slot. Because that's the big thing when the car swings around and just gets out of whack. So you take away a little bit of inertia by producing body float, right? It just
Right.
takes away a little bit of the inertia. But when you go wood track, you need float because once again, when we race, like I come from real world racing, and for us, body roll is a big no-no. We want our chassis as stiff as we can, so we have all the we have the strut bars, we have the rear strut bars, we have a tuned down suspension, we're flattening our car so we don't get body roll, right? Because
Right.
body roll causes understeer, oversteer, whatever it is. So we take away all of that and we want to get it planted into the corner and come around. The difference with a slot car, And I noticed this when I went to Ernie's is a lot of the really good racers have so much roll in the body. I was watching this guy from Brazil. He's a local racer from Brazil, and he's a pro. And he actually taught me how to use my new, heavy duty controller with all the trims. And he had so much roll in his. He has Alpha, the one from Slotted.
Okay.
It was just rolling, like you just see the whole body shift as he came around the corners. And I was racing on the same track as he was, and there was so much roll on his car. And I went to him after, and I was having trouble with with this Revo slot. So Revo slot is a completely different animal to tune, but
Right.
I was having trouble with this. So I walked up to him and said, "Listen, I can't get this car to run properly." So he put it down on the block. He said, "Okay, we got to drop down your front wheels," and it says you got to introduce a little bit more roll in the chassis, right? So the way he did that was, well, he loosened up, but he also put a shim in. He put these two very fine shims in there, and he gave me a little bit more roll, and the car was behaved a lot better. And what it allows you to do is dip into the corners or press the brakes further into the corner and let the car's momentum roll through the corner.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned. So let's see what people are saying here.
So what were those shims made out of? Are they just plastic, or were they a soft material to let that?
Yeah, he cut them out. He makes his own shims,
Okay.
and it's out of like a little kind of gasket material. It's really thin, really small. He said he was gonna cut me some extra ones, and he actually gave me a couple as well.
Yeah. So you find that I mean, that was the big change for me. My first few cars were Carrera cars because I had a Carrera digital track.
Yeah,
And so I was kind of focused on that. And then I started watching your channel and Massimo's channel, which he's a mostly Carrera guy.
yeah,
Um, but then, and then I started watching Dave Kennedy's channel and Travis's channel and George's channel. And these guys were all, you know, doing all kinds of different cars. So I was like, okay, I need to own a slotted. I need to own an NSR. I started going through different, and they all tune differently when it comes to their chassis. But I noticed that the big difference in those chassis compared to Carrera is they all use a motor pod, which is super easy to introduce float with that pod type chassis.
yeah. So a couple of things, and that's something that we need to discuss. Like a solid chassis compared to what I call a hybrid chassis, which is with a motor pod and the float, and then you get the metal chassis, which are completely like built in pieces, right? So
Yeah,
um, each one of them introduces a different way of getting float. So today, what we should do probably is go through the Carrera stuff because I think a lot of us just race Carrera, and I want
yeah,
to really talk about Carrera more than anything else. So what I'm gonna do is switch to the overhead cam here. You're still gonna
yeah.
be on, and then we're gonna go through some cars here. So this is a lineup of cars. So we have the Carrera FXX here. So as you can see, this is a solid chassis. There's no motor pod. Um, so this is a typical Carrera car, right?
Right.
Then we get the sideways. So you race sideways, Group 5. This is a
Yeah.
sideways Jägermeister. And you can see that this is built like a slotted car. Actually, it's exactly like a slotted car. The magnets are slotted magnets. Everything about this car is typical slotted. So slotted chassis pretty much, and then sideways on top. Now this chassis, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this chassis got float in it. And now this caught me by surprise because if you look at this, it looks like a flat chassis, but
Right.
this back pod is only hooked in to the chassis right here.
Gotcha.
So it actually floats here. If you release this body here, this will float. So that's pretty cool too. It's a pretty cool design from Fly. Then you got Ernie's MR slot car, same thing, slotted uh, float as well. It's just
Yeah.
releasing the three. And then you got the tricky guy. So here we go.
The
This is a
Revo
Revo
slot.
slot full of tricks. Very hard to get. Um, you know, very hard to get to tuned up to run right. I find so I'm still working on how to get my Revo slots tuned properly. Right.
Yeah,
So
the new Revo slots that they just released, the Alphas and the BMWs and the Escort, there's lots of guys out there tuning them right now, figuring out that chassis. So
yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's some resources out there for you.
Yeah, there's lots. I mean, George from Area 51 is doing a great job on tuning as
Oh yeah,
well. So there's lots of that. But it's very hard because, like you said, there's so many brands, there's so many different car types. You just start to, you can get really down a rabbit hole here. But the main one that I want to talk about is Carrera, right? So, like we talked about earlier, if you're leaving the magnets on, I don't think it makes much of a difference,
yeah,
right? But if you take out the magnets now, there's normally two magnets in Carrera cars. So there's one normally in the back and then the one just in front of the motor there. When you take them off, the cars become a different animal altogether, right?
right,
So um, what I figured out was if I am going to remove the magnets now, what I do is actually shave down the body. So the first thing I do is normally just take a sandpaper and sandpaper down all the edges of the body, wherever it's touching the chassis. And I also do the same thing to the chassis. I shave back the chassis a bit so that there's no burrs, there's no chance for the body to actually hook on, because that's counterproductive to getting float in, right?
right,
So that's the first thing I do, and then I've been waiting for them, but I've actually ordered the screws where only the thread is at the top end of the screw. So we have I've ordered them in, but I haven't received them yet. Those are the only two things that I do for float to the Carrera car. So what do you do?
yeah. So the first thing that I do is I've sanded my 917. Let me grab it. My 917. This is mine, and I have done those things to it. I've sanded the sides of the chassis, tried to smooth that out, and just create some gap, just a slight gap between the body and the chassis,
Yeah.
just to introduce some float, and that seemed to do a pretty good job. This car, it's probably just a tick behind Georgia's 917s, um, and I think it has to do with the the wheels, the rear wheels. This car is super noisy going around the track,
Yeah. Now
and it's
George says
because
he's done a Carrera non-magnetic tune video, so we can check that out as well.
yeah. So outside of that, did go zero the traction on the front tires. I did the
The
uh,
non grip tires.
yeah. Well, I basically the first time I used the nail polish,
Yeah.
and then the second time I used super glue, but that seems to get really hard and make them noisy. So the third time after I removed that stuff, I did the mop and glow, and that seems
Right.
to
Right.
do a really
Yeah.
good
And
job.
George talked about the floor shine. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm totally taking that idea and using
yeah,
that on my, because I was using nail polish and it's become so loud.
it
The
does.
car became
It
so
really does.
loud, and it's really yeah, it's not a joy to race anymore when it's that loud. I don't find it.
I agree. I noticed that I didn't run my 917 very much just because of the noise, and so now that I've gotten a little quieter, it gets to see the track more. But yeah, I mean that really, the float that I introduced seems to have really improved. Um, I mean, we're talking tenths of a second, right?
Right.
But in a 10 or 12 minute race, that's a lot of room.
Well,
That's
you if you take real world racing, 1 second is a lifetime. Like,
right,
if you look at Formula One, it's 1/100th of a second, right? It's the difference between pole position and fourth or fifth. So
right,
when you think about it from slot car perspective, these things, we did a drag race, right? We did on my channel, we did a drag race. It was a 1/8 mile to scale. So
okay,
1/8 mile down to 1/32nd scale, right? And the cars were flying down that track in less than 1 second. So these cars cover 20 meters in 1 second.
Yeah.
If you start to think about that, like what is 1/100th of a second? It's a lifetime for them, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, it's a big gap.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Um, here we go. Billy is back. If you think that's too loud, don't race with your wife. Billy. Yeah,
That's
thanks
funny,
a
Billy.
lot, Billy. Billy, I got my Carrera Go stuff. I got all my Carrera Go stuff from Sunday Slot Cars once again. They've been
Nice.
awesome for all my Carrera stuff. Thank you once again. So, Area 51 tire oil treatment for rubber tires and clean with naphtha will really improve the handling also. Yeah, see, I don't know enough about all the additives. So I
Yeah.
know the basics. I know about grease. I know about the oil down into the bearings and stuff. But I don't know anything about additives for tires. Now, when I used to race RC, we used to have something called tire juice when we raced on carpeted tracks.
Yeah.
And what you do is you spray the tire juice on the tire and spin it on and run the RC car on the block, and it would just absorb into the tire. And then when you put it on the carpet, it would just grip like crazy. So
Yeah.
I used to remember that, but I don't know much about the stock car world and what they use uh, to for tires. And plus, there's so many different compounds, right? We're racing
Right.
foam tires, so I don't know
Yeah.
enough
So
about that.
there's a lot of guys that talk about what they do with like NSR rubber tires. Um, I guess they can make those things with some additives turn into like gummy bears and be
Yeah.
super sticky. So yeah, I'm sure there's some speed tricks out there that a lot of people wouldn't share. But if I think if you search that stuff, you can find it. I know Pete, Track T, what is his channel? Track Fans TV. He just did a tire conditioning video this past week. He was prepping for a race, and so he talked about what he did. So that's a good video to go check out. So there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, so Area 51 roll, just like you said, lime on RC tires. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I know now with the wood track we're running, like on Ernie's track, we run all sponge tires. So it's
Okay.
all for wood track racing. We're running on foam, I guess the foam tires. It's completely different, but we're also running metal chassis, so the center of gravity is really low on those cars. And they fly. They are amazing to drive. No magnets, but they feel so planted.
Yeah.
But the car has to be tuned properly, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know enough about additives, and I think that's something that we need to learn. But like I said, you remember I talked about the journey as a slot car, racer. It's long gaps in between each segment, and you may
Right.
dabble in all the other segments. But for me, I'm still a novice, like nowhere
Same here.
close to doing anything special with cars. Carrera cars I can tune a little bit, you know, but yeah,
I've seen your videos, Raul. You get the car around the track pretty good. So
no, it's just consistency on trying not to go off. That's what I try when I go to a track. Like when I went to Ernie's, it's very intimidating. Those guys are really good racers, right? They race
yeah.
often and they race a lot. So some of the racers at Ernie's will race like 4 times a week, right?
Wow.
So they come in all the different categories, and like I know some of them have like over 1,000 cars in their collections and stuff, right? So they come out
Yeah,
with
that's
all
nuts.
the different cars and they'll run. But what I try and do is, and I'm almost like a second and a half off the pace. So my job when I go to Ernie's is just to put in lap time. It's the same thing that I did when I learned how to drive proper race cars. I had 400 hours of just lap time before I even started to race.
Right.
It's very important. I know people just get their car, tune them up, and put them on the track, but it's completely different when you actually take it seriously and learn about lines. And that's why I talked to the guy from Brazil. He helped me tune my controller. And a lot of his control, like learning how to control the controller
Right.
to get the most out of a car. So every car has its own setting. You need to know that. So it's amazing that these racers with these great number of cars, they know every car, they know what to set their controllers to and how to drive them, and that's just part of lap time, right?
Right.
So Stewart says here, let's see, I use a mix of NSR tire goop with a few drops of an oil called wintergreen and a few drops of lighter fluid. It also works well. Really interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, Stuart. That's everybody be taking notes
Yeah,
how to tune their tires.
yeah.
But
Like I
I
said,
but I think that we were talking about going back to float,
yeah,
and I think that that tire grip is probably more important than body float. Um, but I think it takes a good combination of both to make the car really perform its best. So it's just finding that happy medium from float in the body and the right grip in the rear, and then weight distribution and all those things.
yeah.
Although Carrera cars, you don't really need to add weight. You probably want to lose weight because they're all pretty heavy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the same principle. Like you take a real car, the first thing that we do is, let's just say I bought a car and I wanted to learn how to race it. The first thing I do is I put it on the track and see what it does, right? Stock, straight out of the box. So same thing, put the car on track, and then figure it out. If it's got too much oversteer, understeer, we know we have to stiffen up certain areas. But we always do step at a time. So the first thing I remember doing was weight reduction. It's the simplest thing to do, right? But for I think for slot cars, I think the first thing you want to do is just get your tires right, right?
Yeah.
So I think truing your rims, putting your rubber in a trued, that kind of just settles the car down, right? And then you can get into the other things like, um, balance. Balance is a huge thing. So put your slot car on a balance rack and see whether it's front heavy, back heavy, where's its tipping point, and you can adjust that by putting those stick on little lead pieces
Right.
at different weights, and that's what they do. And then they balance off the cars to get to the balance that they prefer. Some people like it as a rear wheel bias. Some people like it as a front wheel bias. It all depends on that, right? And
Right.
then just the most important part is just driving the car and just getting a feel for it. And I don't know about you, but I get a lot of feel through the controller to my cars. And if I don't feel the car, then I know I'm not good with that car. I don't know if you get the same feeling when you
Yeah.
race.
Yeah. So I noticed that I'm trying to think where I was probably a couple thousand laps into my track, and when I put my slot at GT40 on the track, I've got a little downhill section that goes into a hairpin. It's a tough part of the track.
Right.
It's where most of our marshaling happens because it's really that downhill, and I could feel through the controller that car start to get light as I was braking into that hairpin,
Right.
and I was learning like where the edge was, and I would go 10 15 20 laps in a row, and I would get into a good rhythm, and I know exactly where that break point was, and it wasn't a visual thing, it was all in the controller.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of laps for me to start sensing that in the controller and not seeing it visually. But that's when things started to change for me as a slot car driver on my track, is getting a feel for that. But then you throw other people on the track with you, that kind of goes all out because you get racy, and you start missing your break points, and
So
car
Sean
goes
brings
flying
up
off the
a good
hairpin.
point here. He says, I'm experimenting with widening the Carrera chassis holes front and back to add more movement of float. And that's something that I've also heard about. Is just taking a little like round file and just filing through those holes so that the thread, if you can't get the screws that don't have any thread at the bottom, it's an easier way to kind of fix that so the threads don't catch on to those threading points.
Yeah, Sean, how's that working for you? Are you noticing any difference in how that allows that chassis to move? I mean, obviously, I've heard that from multiple people that if you can't get the shanked screws,
Yeah.
is to just widen that hole out a little bit. And a lot of times you're trying to add like float from front to back when you do that too.
Yeah.
so that it's not just side to side, but you get a little movement front to back as well.
Sean says, let's see what he says here. So he also says, um, let's see. He says filling in the Carrera divots is important as truing the tires for me. I totally agree. I just run them down a bit. I don't fill them. I just sand them down.
And then you just change the tire size that you're putting
Yeah,
on it.
because with the Paul gauges, they are. I always get the tires are slightly oversized anyway, so when you put them on, and then I just true them down a lot lower than um, before, and it kind of gives me more grip on the track. It also brings the magnets closer down if you're running magnets, right? It's
Right.
another way to cheat. You just bring the rubber down on the tires, and it brings the car closer to the track, but
But
it increases your drag, right?
right.
So
Now, that's the only way a Carrera car you can really adjust the front ride height
yeah,
is by truing down those front tires.
yeah. SCC has Carrera body float screws. Yeah, I've ordered some. It just takes a long time to get things here. Case in
Because
point,
of customs.
I don't know what it is. Whether it's customs or shipping in general, it's just been, if it's outside of Canada, takes a little bit of time. It's really odd because I'll tell you something. I bought something from Croatia, and they shipped it DHL, and it came almost like 3 days later, right? And then I bought something from the United States, from California, and they shipped it the next day, and it took a month and a half. It came with UPS. I was like, what
That's
happened?
crazy.
So I don't even understand what's going on. So Slot Invasion USA sells them in two sizes for Carrera as well. Yeah, so Billy says customs. I tend to agree, possibly.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Sean says shipping from the UK on eBay is twice as fast. Yep, I agree. Yeah, so anyway, so those are the basics, I think, of float. Was there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of float?
No, I had been putting float in all of my Carrera cars, um, and I was shocked at how well those 917s performed yesterday that had zero float. I mean, I look at how much float I have in my 917, and then I compare it to those four that George sent me, and there is no float in those cars, and they were so fast. It kind of debunked the whole thing that you have to have body float to go fast. But then, in my head is like I was still running magnets, and that magnets has to help for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so for myself, like the DDT track that I run my tests on, the main reason that I use that track, I have a lot of track, and I took down the big track because we're moving actually into commercial space right now. Looking for a commercial spot to put down a proper digital track and open it up to public, as we've talked about many times.
Yeah,
But but the DDT track, when I put it together, when everyone buys Carrera sets, the only corners you get are I guess the 1 in 60s.
yeah, 160 the R ones.
Right.
Yeah,
So what I did with the track was I built a DDT track, and we can have a look at the track. I think it's up here. Nope. Let's see. I think I have the track here somewhere. There we go. So if you notice, all these turns are all 1 in 60s.
yeah,
And the reason I built it that way was because it was easier for people to build a replica of this track, and that's why I put the track dimensions on the website. And I test against this track. Now, this track is really hard on anything that's got a longer wheelbase
right,
because it will spin out. It's harder to control. So it's a little bit of it's an even playing field for testing when you have a controlled environment like this, but it's a negative because like the 917R NSR is not going to compete with the 9083, right, on the
right.
track
Yeah,
for sure.
that's right.
Right,
Yeah,
because
that
the
908's going to beat it every
9083
day.
is super the wheelbase super short. It's super nimble. So 1 in 60s are easy to take on. Yes, Area 51. There are lots of poly cars. Yes, all Formula Ones. I have all the Formula One poly cars uh, on my track.
So does George.
Yeah,
I think he bought all of them too.
yeah. And it's funny because I don't really run Formula One cars a lot. I just a big Formula One fan. So I just got the latest, all the new Formula Ones from Carrera, like the latest edition, and
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to the new ones coming in from NSR and everything else. But it's so yeah. Once again, coming back to that, it's just the small nimble cars just do crazy amounts of speed, right?
yeah,
And the Formula Ones for me, the reason why I don't run Formula Ones is they're just super fast. It's almost like running a chassis without the body on the track, right? You know how
right.
fast these cars are, or like a wing car. Like I don't knock wing cars. I just find it for myself. It's like a Lexan body on a chassis, and really, like Ernie the other day, I was at Ernie's, and he sold just the wing car chassis for $1,000. Just the chassis, like the chassis with the motor and everything in
Yeah,
place. Just that was $1,000, and at the end of the day, it's like I don't even know how they control those cars because they
right.
just zip around at such speed that I don't even have the the motor skills to remove. I don't know how they move their fingers that fast, honestly, and I don't even know if they do because those cars
Yeah,
just seem to stick,
yeah.
right?
They seem to stick. They move so fast that you visibly can't see them um, in videos on YouTube.
Yeah,
It's just a streak going by. But it goes back to $1,000 for a chassis.
yeah,
Now you're out of reach for a lot of hobbyists. So I mean I think that's the beauty of the Carrera cars and the Carrera digital home sets is it is affordable. You can spend $55-$60 on a digital car, do a little bit of tuning, and be competitive with your buddies at the track. So
yeah, hundred
it's
percent.
a great entry point. Um, and at that entry point, everyone seems to be willing to share knowledge to help people go faster.
And
At the $1,000 and $1,500 price point, people
yeah,
are probably less likely to help you go faster.
yeah, and I don't know. So why did I buy slot cars? One was I was just an avid car enthusiast. I love cars, right? And I got sick and I had to sell my performance shop, sell all my race cars, and I had nothing to do to keep me in touch with the car world except, and I didn't want to go to car shows. I used to be a big. I was on the Dub car show. I told went to SEMA. I went to SEMA
Yeah,
8 straight years, right? Because
yeah,
we had booths at SEMA. We brought cars to SEMA. I had the fastest Hellcat in Canada, 1,200 horsepower. Like, so I lived that life, and then
right.
I had to leave it behind, and it was hard for me to let go. But then stock cars kind of fill that void because you can go every weekend. I can pick up cars and have that experience again of unboxing a brand new car and looking at it. It's miniature, but the
Sure.
detail level on stock cars is so good that you almost experience that car all over, even
Yeah,
though it's small, right? And it doesn't look odd because like I do Lego and you've seen the Lego cars, but they look odd, right? They got
yeah,
little bricks stick out, they got little imperfections
right.
in the body styling, but slot cars just seem to hit that sweet spot for me. And
Yeah,
132nd was like amazing for the size and the detail. So I started picking up slot cars, right? And then you're like, okay, my friends were the guys at the club were not into racing, but one day we decided to just take a drive down to Panther Hobbies. That's where the Carrera dealer was for us. And when we went there, I said to everyone, you know what? Let's get into racing. It was just during the pandemic, and people were not working. And I was like, you know what? Let's take our mind off stuff. I got this whole big track that I bought in 2008 sitting in my basement. When we pull it out, let's make a track, and everyone just buy one car and let's just race. right? And that just kind of catapulted us into this, like, some people really got into it, and some people just wanted to bash cars, right? It
Sure.
was so funny because I have one friend who just took down the barriers so he could fly his car off the track. That's what he wanted to do, but it was his way of just having fun.
Right.
And you can't fault him.
No.
That's he's not into the car. He's more into like the demolition of it, right?
Sure.
What falls apart. And he was so, like, for him, his car, the more beat up it was, the prouder he felt, of it. And I get that. Yes, I am from Toronto, at one. So whenever you want to hang out, just let me know. No problems. But that's the beauty of stock cars. It can
Yeah.
appeal to you in a very unique way, I think. And for myself, Carrera was the easiest way in. It's the cheapest way in to the hobby in terms of cars. Like right now, a electric car in Toronto cost me about $120 Canadian.
Wow.
And a Carrera car, an analog car, cost me around $60, or a digital one, $85.
Yeah.
It's a lot more reasonable than trying to buy. I mean, this electric car is the same price as an NSR for me, so I wouldn't buy electric.
Right.
bought
I
a
would pick the
couple.
NSR every time.
I bought a couple because of the plaid livery from FAF, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, so I picked up that car. The Bentley, because nobody else makes a Bentley, so I picked up Bentley GT3. But it's only for the cars that I couldn't possibly get in another brand. But otherwise, I wouldn't pick up electric. But Carrera, I pick up every Carrera car. If I can find it, I'll pick it up. And I prefer, because I have so many digital cars, there's no point picking up digital anymore because you have so many digital chips. So
Yeah, you just swap them out.
I just buy the analogs and put the digital chip when I want to race it digitally. And now with the tech slot box that I have, you can put why are we in trouble? I don't know. Okay, you have to explain yourself because I don't know why we're in trouble. If you do a scratch building, you are done.
Yeah, I think they were talking
right.
scratch building in the chat.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But
We'll get there
George,
one
like,
day, George.
Yeah, eventually, exactly. I'll get there one day. I don't know if I will. Yeah, I'm not. I'm too. Like, for me, the car has to have too much perfection for me to scratch build it. Like, the body is fine, but then I don't know. I really have to try. I have a friend who lives literally down the street from me. He has been a slot car collector since he was, I think, 6 or 7. He's now in his very late 70s or 60s. And he scratch builds cars from the Tamiya plastic model kits.
Yeah.
And he's brought a couple of them over. And they're beautiful cars, right? They have metal chassis, just like I have with my AMG. But, it's crazy the amount of detail that you can put in or leave out, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you watched Travis's new video today on the paper cars.
No, I haven't watched that yet.
Paper slot cars. So there's another concept, right? At the end of the day, all you need is like the build and race sets, right? At the end of the day, all you need is that chassis to run on the track, right? You just need a moving chassis, and you gotta find a way to affix the top, right? So now with 3D printing, you can easily do that.
Yeah.
But are they official? Like, for me, I'm so particular about the look of the car and the pristine, I don't think I would ever be able to paint to this finish.
Right.
Even if I took a scratch built car, I don't have that confidence to bring it to this finish, right? And this is so simple. Like, think about it. It's just white. If you taped up, you got a little bit of black, gloss black. But I couldn't do that, so I don't know if I'd ever do scratch building. I'd be so embarrassed to show off my scratch builds.
That's funny.
It's all about the modeling aspect of it for scratch builds. For sure.
Yeah.
100%. You can paint with contrast primer. I don't know what the contrast primer is. I used to paint gaming figures a because I've been in wargaming for the past since 2005.
Yeah.
And I can airbrush and I can do all that, but figures are different. It's like
Right.
painting a monster is so easy. You can blend and you can get away with stuff, but a car is so pristine. Lines are so it to me it's very difficult. So I am amazed at George and all these guys that can scratch build. That just blow my mind.
Yeah, I was watching Harry Wise's videos all weekend as they were running some of those scratch builds. Yeah, some guys are really talented.
Yeah. So yeah, Billy, 3D printing isn't expensive. I bought a filament printer a long time ago. I tried to do a couple of builds. Actually, I built like a number of houses and helicopters and all of that. 3D printed them, but you know, it's a lot of work. 3D printing is not easy. Like maybe when you're printing just the chassis, it's fine, but when you get into like high components or moving components, there's a lot of cleanup that goes into it. Your STL files have to be so well thought out. Like it gets very intricate. The Hoonigan car. Yes, that's a car I would rarely build.
Yeah, same here. Um, I think that's Dave Kennedy announced that next week in news he's got some news about some Ken Block cars, possibly that a slot car company might be doing. I'm filling in the blanks because he was very vague, and but I'm excited to listen to that because that was one of those. The death of Ken Block, a couple weeks ago, was really shocking to me, and the fact that nobody has really, from a commercial standpoint, none of the big slot car manufacturers have tried to make that unicorn car, which is probably one of the most famous cars anywhere, but nobody's tried to build that.
In the
And
RC world, it exists.
yeah,
Actually, I have
RC10.
the RC Ford Fiesta Ken Block drift car.
Do you
I'm
really?
so proud of it. It sits on my shelf. I should
Yeah.
try. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Associate built. You could get that
Yeah,
car.
Team Associates. Yeah.
A kid. Yeah.
And now in Block Zone, if you into building blocks, they do both the Ken Block cars, the Mustang and the truck.
The truck.
Yeah, so it's crazy. But one car I really wanted. Ken Block's death was crazy. But there's a car, the latest Audi that he just built. That car is one of my favorite Ken Block cars. I know the Mustang is cool and the truck is cool, but that Audi is so nostalgic for me because growing up in Africa, I've actually seen that car race on the East African Safari Rally. So I wanted that car, but now, who knows whether it will come out. But
yeah, that car's cool, and I really like the Pikes Peak car that they just did.
Yeah.
This year, or last year, that was a pretty amazing car too, and that would make a great slot car.
Yeah, the same thing when Colin McRae died, because when Colin McRae was one of my idols growing up, because obviously rally car, same thing. It was tough, and I'm glad that I have his 555 auto art Subaru. I think I showed on the channel. It's an all-wheel drive slot car, so pretty happy with that. So I'll pick up any Ken Block car if I can find it.
Yeah. But I saw where Scalectrics is releasing a car in this range.
Yeah. Remember what? Marty George telling you to remember something.
I'm not sure what he's referring
There's
to.
a scratch build video Harry posted for the event. What was he saying? Okay. I don't know. I think he's talking about the Hoonigan car. Maybe there's a scratch build out there. Probably.
Yeah, there is. There is a scratch build that Harry showed off this weekend in one of his videos. It looks fantastic. But what it does show is the detail that George was referring to, that some guys invest in those scratch builds. He had the turbos light up in the car. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's there's a different art form, right? When you start to scratch build, like Luna Knight. Luna Knight says, "Oh, cool, my two favorite people." I don't know. I think Marty is more favorite than I am. I'm a newbie, so But yeah, I appreciate everyone signing on, listening to us. Trying Marty and I have talked about doing this for a while, so I'm
Yeah,
excited
this
to
has
do
been
it
fun.
together. Yeah, for sure.
And I learned a lot about float that maybe I didn't know before.
Yeah, for sure. So Marty, couple of final things here. What is your favorite car right now that you're driving? What is the car? So that's the first question. Second question is, what car do you have on slate to buy next, and why?
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now, my favorite car on the track is a Thunderslot Elva,
Okay.
and the reason is a guy we met. He jumps on the live streams on Tuesdays. Daryl, he's from Dayton, Ohio. We got to meet up with him at since he slots at the races, and he lent me some cars to play with on the track, and one of them was a Thunderslot Elva, and it is such a smooth car.
Yeah.
It's a non-mag car, but I think the motor has a little bit of has some magnet downforce to it, that it's locked in on my track. Really, it's so smooth. I really enjoy driving that car. So right now, it's probably my favorite car. It's beating out the 908
Oh, really?
NSR as my favorite.
I never thought you'd say that.
I know that my 908 is my favorite car, but this Elva is fantastic. Really impressed with how it performs. Now, my next purchase is there's a couple more weeks left of Group Five racing at Cincy Slots, and I'm going to try to sneak down before the end of the month, and I want to pick up a sideways Group Five. And I just can't make a decision on what I want. I love that Nissan, the Pennzoil, is it a
Right.
GTR?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that it qualifies as a
I
Group
don't believe
Five
that's a
car.
Group Five car.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it
I
never
think
ran Group Five.
I
So
think it's the Ford Caprice. If I'm
yeah,
not
the
mistaken, the Kramer
Caprice,
Porsches.
and
Um,
so I just can't decide which one. But that's going to be my next purchase, so I can tune a car to take down to race in the next couple weeks.
yeah. For sideways, so my experience with this car, the Capri, is very
Yeah,
hard to drive, handle.
yeah,
I just had a hard time with it. I had more fun with the Porsche Kramer. I was a little bit more balanced, I guess.
yeah.
So that's my
And
background with that.
that's a considered a Group Five car, I think.
Yeah,
The Kramer, yeah.
yeah,
So
that
that's
is
one
a
of them
Group
I'm
Five
looking at.
car.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And then you have the 325 CSLs, the BMWs. Those are also Group Five cars.
yeah,
Um, I think there's also this is the Ford Capri wide body, and then there's a Ford Capri RS 2000, which is also I think a Group Five car as well, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
But there's a bunch of them. Um,
yeah. There's a lot of choices which I like.
yeah, Marty, if you remember the link to the scratch build for Ken Block's car, if you just send it to me, I'll put a link in the video below.
Okay, yeah,
And so anybody who's looking for that or any scratch build, I'll put a link to George's series as well for scratch building because that was phenomenal.
yeah. It
Um,
is. It's
so your next car is a slot sideways.
sideways. Yeah,
Okay.
just because I want to tune it to try to race that last weekend of January for Cincy Slots, and then next month they move to vintage. So I'm either going to rework my GT40, um, my slot at GT40, or pick up another old car. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's cool. And the BMW M1, like Sean Casey says, that's another beautiful Group 5 car. So
Yeah,
you should look into the BMW M1. I
yeah.
have a bunch
It's
of
a pretty
them.
popular car. I'm trying to find something that's got a different livery than anybody else.
The
It's
Kramer,
getting
if you can find the Coca-Cola Kramer car, it would be awesome.
yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, so for myself, right now, um, I'm working on the SP333 from Ernie. I'm getting that tuned in. And
Nice.
you know the Shadow is next, so
I did know the
that's
Shadow's
for
next.
sure a car. But the car that I am getting next week is the 128 Revo slot. So
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
very excited about that. So Revo slots are my favorite looking car, but I can't tune them for the life of me. to run properly. Except for the Alpha. The Alpha was really fun because once again, short wheelbase on this
Yeah.
track, it was just a lot of fun to drive. Um, but the Riva slots just drive me nuts with the like the F40 I got, the Ferraris. The
Yeah.
detail is incredible. So yeah, I'm totally in love with Revo slots. Just
Yeah,
can't tune them, just can't drive them. So they're not driving cars. Ernie's cars are my favorite cars to drive right now. So
yeah.
and you have a surprise on the way to your house. So enjoy it when you get it. Because I'm thinking you're going to change allegiances as soon as you get one of those in your hands. So I'm
Oh,
making
thanks,
sure you
man.
get one.
That's awesome. That is
But
awesome.
yeah, my daughter races this Porsche.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it's her car, so I'm borrowing it from her for this show. But yeah, she loves this car, um, and I've given her a bunch of Carrera cars, but this is her favorite car.
That's the one she goes back to. Yeah,
And
that's
it's also
awesome.
my favorite. I'd say I have a red one of it as well. But the SP333s are amazing as well. So that's really what I got going on my end. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that Shadow, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
That
Did
that
you
will
see
be a
the
fun car.
livery that came out? The
No, I
black.
did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah, it looks great. Yeah, that's a cool car from my childhood. Young, I was very young when that car was out. I didn't really know anything about racing at the time, but I think I told a story once. Of my next door neighbor um, had one in an HO,
Right.
so this had probably been late '70s, um, and he brought it over, and I fell in love with that car because it was the fastest on the track,
Right.
and I just remember that as a 8 or 9 year old kid.
Yeah. I don't know much about the Shadow. I just like the look of open top cars. So
Yeah.
open top cars are some of my favorite looking cars, but not F1. So really
Right.
weird. F1 cars are great. I think there's so much tech in an F1 car that you have to admire them, right?
Right.
And the racing is, like I said, 1/100th of a second puts you from first to fourth. It's crazy that those cars are so well built and so well tuned, right? But I like the LMPs, but open top. I
Yeah.
really like those kind of cars, so I'm excited to see more of those come out. And Area 51, I will definitely get in touch with you to try and get my Revo slots going, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So
George is a good one to talk to about the Revo slot.
yeah,
He'll
George
help
is
you out.
great. George does so many awesome videos. Like there's so much knowledge on the table. So
Yeah.
like I have no knowledge to give. Like I have very limited knowledge. All I do is collect cars. Like I said, if you talk to me about cars, I can tell you a lot about cars from how they're built. But when it comes to slot cars and getting them tuned, I'm just learning. And
Yeah, same
that's
here.
the fun part of it is that every day you do something a little bit different and the car goes a little bit faster and you're like, what did I do? Let me try that again and let me try it on a different car. And I've done it to like so the Porsche 911 RSR is my favorite car, right? From Carrera.
Okay.
It always is. And I have I think 10 different liveries of it. And each one of them has a different tune on them. They're all tuned.
Right.
I thought that I was doing the same thing to all of them, but no.
Yeah,
One doesn't drive like the other, and I was like,
it's funny.
I just can't match it. It's crazy. But like I said, lots of knowledge. The community has been awesome. I love
Yeah,
it.
same here.
Uh, Meeting people like yourself has been awesome. So we're gonna meet up in person this summer.
Definitely.
100%. So we're gonna figure that out. I know Sean's dying to meet as well, Sean Casey, and we'll
Yeah.
figure it out. We'll get a place. And I was thinking, like, maybe we hire a convention hall and put a track down for the weekend, and we all get together for
And
the
go
weekend
play.
and do some racing.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think it would be awesome. So yeah, definitely something that we should be doing. But this is one of many live streams that we'll be doing together.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Raul.
We'll
Thanks.
test out different things, and I'm all about sharing knowledge amongst ourselves. So I'm really glad that you were up for this, and I look forward to doing a lot more. But we're over an hour in, and it went by really fast. So
It did go by fast. Yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah, so I enjoyed this a lot. Thank you so much, Marty, for tuning in today.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks
for
to
having me.
everyone for tuning in as well. We're falling in love with this hobby more and more, and we'll look forward to sharing more things with you guys and you guys sharing with us. So thank you so much for tuning in, Marty. You have a great evening.
Yeah, you
As
too.
soon as you get your box, you give me a call because
All
I
right.
have
Thanks,
another
Raul.
surprise in there, and you tell me whether you can work it.
Okay.
So, we'll have some fun. All right.
That sounds great. Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, take it easy.